What is going on, Hive? Today is June 23rd, 2025. Happy Monday to everybody. I hope you guys all started your week off strong. As always, on Monday nights, I have Devil's Advocates joining me. He's backstage. But before I bring him up here in a couple of minutes, I want to, right off the jump, let everybody know it is 100% confirmed, God forbid some last second cancellation, that Will is actually what he goes by, Brian Koberger's friend that made those videos calling out who he called guilter creators. He's going to be on the stream tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central. And I talked to him on the phone for 45 minutes, and I guess I'll leave it at you. You're not going to want to miss that stream. Went into, first time you met Brian. What was Brian like socially? When's the last time you talked to him? So, yeah, I will leave it. I will leave it at that. And again, I don't know if Will is tuned in to this, but thank you for being willing to come on. Like I said, I'm going to let Will say whatever the hell he wants. If you guys have joined the Discord, I have a new thread for any questions that you guys want submitted. So I just wanted to, before I forgot, or if people are only able to tune in to the beginning here, I just wanted to make sure that I got that out right away. So anyways, now I can say what's up to the Hive. Courtney, I agree. That is incredible. Brooke, that's what I was telling him when I was on the phone. I said, you're going to have a Hive mind in a chat that's going to ask you some good questions. We got Mercedes, Jody, Dina. Is this true, Lucy? Monique, CJ, how are you doing? Phoenix, that is confirmed, huh? Wow. Okay. Oh, okay. That's what you were saying. Confirmed probably to me having him on. Yes, please do. Thank you. Phoenix will be up there with me tomorrow as well. But Chantelli Lace, I was just going to say it. What's Gucci, my Louie? And where is everybody tuning in from tonight? Arkansas. 509 fams in the house. Let's go. What's up, Sandra and Sandra's fam? We got Kentucky, Tennessee, Minnesota, Florida, Utah, back in Texas, Seattle, Essex in the UK. Wow. Another UK. Cali for now from Phoenix, North Carolina, Montreal, Southern Indiana, Minnesota, Missouri, Illinois, Oklahoma, the Hive Down Under in Australia, another Hive Down Under, Northern Idaho, Louisiana, Berkeley, Yorkshire, Richland, Alabama, War Eagle, Scotland, St. Louis. Love my fellow cheeseheads. Ireland. Wow. That is awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to bring up Devil's Advocates here and say what's up to him. He's got some exciting updates, and we were talking backstage, so I'm excited to chat with him this evening. What is going on, man? How are you doing?
Hey, what's up? I got excited when someone said Richland. I was born in Richland, so I'm born and raised in Richland, and I was like 509 area code and Richland. What the hell? Like that's my hometown.
Really?
So that was very exciting. Very exciting.
That's cool. It's right on screen there.
Yeah, that was. I was like, what did you just say? Did you say Richland? I got to go like my. Oh, maybe they mean like Richmond. No, Richland. Very nice.
Yeah, no, it was Richland. And just to clarify, when somebody said William was called as a witness by AT and Phoenix said confirmed, I think Phoenix might have been delayed a little bit behind and was responding to when I said it is confirmed William will be on the stream tomorrow. That is what I believe that was in reference to, just to clarify. But anyways, devil's
Yeah. Hey, yeah, I was going to say, Jeremy was asking if both of our streams are combined for chat. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm seeing our streams combined for chat, although I don't know if I can tell the difference between what's is yours is what's mine, but I think our chats are combined.
Yeah, this Jeremy right here on screen. Do you see it on screen on your end, his comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that Jeremy. One. Yeah.
So we are combined.
Very cool. Yeah, so what were you saying? You were starting to say something when I digressed there.
You were telling me you just got back from a trip from Boise.
Oh yeah. You remember that night you and I had, and I told you like a humiliating story from my past about writing a letter to a girl I thought I had a connection with, and then having the police called on me on that shit.
Yeah, because you were like, she wrote me a check, and you're like, wow, I have her address. I can send her mail. Yeah.
Right. So, and I thought that's the 20-year-old me. I'm not going to make that kind of mistake again. I kind of actually made that mistake again in a weird way. Not that exact mistake, but my life is so nuts. I'm a train wreck. I have a story. So I got, this is worth it, dude. So I got like, I'm embarrassed even telling this story. So I go down to Boise, Idaho yesterday because I want to check out the Koberger trial because I'm planning on attending the Koberger trial in person, and it's not too far from me. So I rented a room, and I got the address of the room. So I wanted to go down and check out the location, see how far it is from the courthouse, the whole 9 yards. And I decided, I can't even tell this story. Anyway, so I decided that I'm going to catch a bite to eat at a local pub that's between the courthouse and the place where I'm staying, right? And I don't even know how to start this story. So the name of the brew house has a name that I didn't realize was a double entendre. I walk in and it's basically like Hooters on steroid. Like all the females that are waitresses, they all got skimpy tops on and short shorts that might not even qualify as shorts, right? And I'm trying not to be the dirty old man. And I'm like looking at my menu. I want no part of this. I'm like, I feel like a creep is the way to even being in here. I'm in my 50s. I'm too old to be here. I feel ashamed, right? But get this. So this life is weird, man. So I'm sitting in there, and the waitress, I'm apparently the only person in this waitress's area. And she comes up and she decides she's gonna work the tip, no pun intended. She's gonna work the tip, and she's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, why are you here? And I'm like, well, I'm in town scoping out a trial. And she's like, oh no shit, what trial? I said, Brian Koberger's trial. She goes, no shit. So then she says, I'm related to a girl who's dating the guy that Kaylee was dating and the night she was murdered, and that he was with her in the bar at the corner club that night. And at the moment, I'm like, my jaw's dropping when she's saying this. I'm thinking, what are you just saying? So she named the guy, which I won't name at the moment. And she named her name, and I don't name that at the moment because I'm still trying to confirm the details on this, but bear with the story. So she tells me this kind of like, yeah, my relative is dating the guy that was dating Kaylee when that whole murder happened and whatever. And hey, do you want a refill on your drink? And I'm like, sure. So she leaves, and I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck just happened? So she comes back, and I'm like, can we talk about that guy? And she's like, sure. So she sits down, and it's kind of funny because the old dude is sitting with this like 20-something-year-old whatever, and like other people in the bar are starting to watch us. Like, why the hell is this chick sitting down with them to talk? So she starts telling her story. And she's like, yeah, I applied for U of I. I was going to go there, but then the girls got murdered that same year I applied, and I immediately backed out. And so now I'm still here. And, my mom really knows more of the detail. It's so awesome when your mom, like I'm so old, I got to talk to her mom. But anyways, this is where this is going. I'm going to talk to her mom, get permission to talk to her. Anyways, so here's what's funny. So she's talking, and I said, no shit. You really know who Kaylee was dating the night of, and that her boyfriend was there at the corner club? Like, this is shit I haven't heard before. She's like, yeah. She goes, my mom knows the details more. And I said, hey, look, I'm a true crime guy. I'm on YouTube. I said, you have piqued my interest. Is there any way I can talk to you more about this later? So I'm going, I got things to do. I got to go back home. Is there a way we can exchange information? This is where this shit's going. Can we exchange information? She's like, sure. And I said, well, how do you want to do this? I mean, you want me to give you my number, or you want to put your number in my phone number? She goes, sure, I'll put my number in your phone number. So I hand her my phone, and now I'm getting eyes from people across the bar like, how the hell is this dude getting this chick's phone number? And she's all putting that shit into my phone. Well, I give her a business card. We do our little thing. And in the excitement of the moment, thinking, holy shit, am I going to get a scoop? Am I going to get like some inside scoop on some shit? She hands me the bill after we're done. And I'm so excited. I'm thinking about going to the courthouse and all that, because I'm going to film going to the courthouse and stuff. I just sign my name on the check and I don't write in a tip, right? Like a douche. I just sign my name. And she's taking all this time and she's giving me all this information. I got her phone number. We're going to hook stuff up. I don't give her a tip. So then I feel bad. And I'm driving and I realized later on, I said, hey, I sent her a text. I said, hey, thanks for talking to me and serving me lunch. It was a great conversation. I can't wait to hear more about your story. And then I realized, shit, I didn't give her a tip. I think I just signed the paper. So I said, oh my God. I said, I can't believe I didn't give you a tip. What an ass. I owe you money. And then I sent it. I'm like, oh my God, I just said, what an ass. She's going to think I'm talking about her ass. Because right? Because I'm like, what an ass. I owe you money. And I'm like, oh shit. Oh no, that's no. So then I text and I'm thinking, wait a minute. I'm like frozen in shock. I'm in frozen shock fear, like Dylan. I'm frozen in shock fear because I don't know. Do I text her and make it worse? Do I try to uncluster screw myself? Right. So I write back with much trepidation, I mind you. I write back and I said, by the way, when I said, what an ass, I'm referring to myself as an asshole for not tipping. Hours go by. I don't hear from this girl. Hours go by. And I'm thinking, how do I fucking do this to myself? I'm such a cluster, right? Hours go by. Finally, she writes and she's like, LOL, that's hilarious. I didn't take it the wrong way, but I was working. I can't have my phone at work. I'll get back to you later. I got to check with my mom and because she's got all the details. So we're still good. And I still might have some really cool story, but F me if that didn't. I'm like, how do I do that? And then my wife, of course, when I'm heading back, she's like, how did it go? I said, pretty good. I said, I went to a bar, got a 20-year-old's phone number. I'm heading home. See you. I love you, honey. So that probably wasn't the way to wear that, but that's my life, man.
I thought you were going to say that you sent an additional text overthinking it hours later when you said, just to know, I wasn't talking about your ass. I was referring to myself. But then I thought maybe you thought, oh, maybe she got offended. And then you would triple text her and be like, not that your ass wasn't something. That's where I thought you were.
Thank God I didn't do that. Like I was overthinking it, right? Like as soon as I read the text that I sent her and it says, what an ass. I owe you money. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, that sounds horrible. Like, because I mean, anyways, and that sounded horrible. And then I really didn't know whether to back it out, you know? And so when I said, just to clarify, when I mean what an ass, I'm talking about myself. And fortunately, I let it go at that. Like I didn't try to uncluster that. I just let it go. And I put it out into the ether and I let that shit go. And then hours later, as I'm panicking, so I'm like, oh, I just lost that. She's probably calling the police on me right now. Some old dude was checking out my ass at the bar. No, it turned out that she totally understood it the way it was meant to be. And we're good. And I still have a chance to talk to her or her mother about what it is they know and confirm whether that story is true or not. And my goodness, I don't know that I've heard that. In fact, when she did say the boyfriend's name that she said was Kaylee's boyfriend, I think I've heard that name before. So I was like, really? I said, so can we talk more about him? And again, I'm being vague about it on purpose because there was one part of her story. I'll just be fair right now. There was one part of her story that didn't check out. And I thought, I better vet this before I tell anybody about it. And that was something to the effect of, she said, yeah, her boyfriend drove them home that night. And I'm like, well, that doesn't check out because we know that he went to the corner club. They got picked up by a driver. So how could Kaylee's boyfriend have driven him back to the house that night? So now I'm kind of putting the brakes on, like, how legit is this story and whatever. And she did say, by the way, you really probably should talk to my mom because she knows the story better. So maybe she screwed up the story. Maybe it's getting convoluted, conflated. I don't know. But before I go and put names on shit, I want to get, the real story and make sure they're good and whatever. But I thought it was a fun story to tell anyways.
No, that's incredible. And I'm not saying there seems to be a theme in your life from 20 until today, but
there is kind of a theme.
Yeah, that's hilarious. And you know what? In all seriousness, in all seriousness, it could be nothing, or it could be a super legitimate lead, because there's been people who have speculated, like, is that footage even from that night? Right. Like, again, that is a speculation that has been said. It's not like a super popular one, but I know, like, with the Twitch footage, a lot of people have said that looks like a rerun. It might have been edited. Was the name? You don't have to tell me, I guess, just as far as like a hint. So it wasn't the name of the driver that we all think.
Nope.
Okay.
No. Nope, it was a different name. I had heard the name before, and I couldn't remember where I heard the name. So I that's why I'm really hesitant to say the name. But like you said, I mean, if it was true that Kaylee was there, not just with Maddie, but with a guy that she's seeing, and Jack DeCour saw that, right? How does that play out? Is that even possible? How would we have not heard about that by now? So it makes me wonder. And the way I got it and again, it was a brief conversation, and I was socially awkward as hell. I might as well be on the spectrum because I didn't handle that very well. But the point being is that it sounded to me like she's still related to somebody who's still dating the guy who was dating Kaylee at the time. And if that's the case, maybe I can even get a hold of that guy. But then I would have to ask myself, why the hell hasn't anybody talked to this guy already? If there was somebody that Kaylee was dating that night, and this guy is still around, how's somebody not talked to that guy? But I don't know.
I mean, that is, so if we were to just break that down from a surface level, I'm assuming you're at Twin Peaks or
yes.
Like
See, I didn't want to say that, but I'm like, yeah. I saw Twin Peaks. I look at mountains. I now know what they mean by Twin Peaks. So I walked in and I'm like, oh my God, there's only two things in common with every woman here.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyways,
That's funny.
It's a great bar, by the way. Fantastic. I loved it. I've never been there before, but it was beautiful.
I went there once, honestly. That's it. And it was kind of the same thing. Like the only restaurant that had like bar food where I think there was like some basketball or football game on when I was traveling. But yeah, where I was going to go with that though, going back to just the conversation. Do you think that somebody in general, while on the clock, a comment gets said by some random stranger would then sit down, exchange numbers, maybe get you in contact with their mom, say names that are like, whoa, that could be something, if there wasn't at least either a giant clarification that her mother's going to make, or there's a hint of truth. So,
well, it definitely rang true with the way that it started, the conversation started. And then when she kind of fumbled over a thing, she did quickly say that her mom really knew more of the details. So it has a ring of truth. It definitely has a ring of truth. So I'm excited about the possibility. I've never done anything like that. I'm actually really a very shy person. So striking up a random conversation with a stranger was completely out of my wheelhouse. You don't know how much bravery it took on my part when she came back just to say, hey, can we talk again about that guy? Like, that's not me. I'm not the kind of person to just ask a stranger. I'm like, hey, can we talk more about that guy? And to my shock, she sat down and said, yeah, let's talk. So we talked more about it. And so I'm hopeful that it turns into something. That'd be very cool. I told her, I said, if you're interested in getting on YouTube, I'll put you on the show and we'll talk, or I can talk to your mother, or I can just come down and we'll do an interview in your living room and you never have to show your face or your name or whatever. So I'm giving them options for telling their story, but I have yet to hear. And the last thing I want to do right now is keep texting her and have her immediately regret giving me her phone number. So I don't want to keep texting her over and over and over again. So I told her on the last message, I said, hey, look, so I don't wear out my invite, this is the last time you're going to hear from me until you reach out to me, but I'm super excited to hear what you have to say. And she said, I will get back to you. So that's where we're leaving it. I'm going to let her reach out when she's ready. But
someone just said, is her mom WSU Kim?
I haven't met her mom.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh man. Well, yeah, you're going to have to keep us updated on that. And I hope that at least it's worth your time and conversation.
And it's funny because, when you mentioned the Twin Peaks, I actually felt I wasn't going to mention Twin Peaks because I was afraid. I don't want anybody rushing into Twin Peaks trying to find out who it is that's there, because, now that somebody knows that somebody there works there and might know somebody, I don't want anybody else going there and harassing, trying to ask them what waitress it was. So I was a little bit nervous, but it is what it is.
Something tells me that the only physical description that you gave of her might be what every other person working there has.
Right,
so I think you're fine.
Right.
So you didn't mention names, so I will respect trying to pry it out of you, and we can move on.
Yeah.
That's interesting though. So
I thought so.
I wanted to start the stream here with you and kind of touch base on one of the things we just talked about backstage, and that is that the Idaho 4 case is unraveling. I just listed DoorDash gag orders and LE lies, right? We were talking about Payne and the statements he was making directly to Ann Taylor.
Yeah.
I have a clip of a creator whose videos I will watch, every now and again. like today I had a long lunch break, so I wanted to see what he had posted on Saturday night. I'm talking about Jay and Bree. And at the end of this video, there's a clip that I think he kind of just sums up something that all of us probably have inside of us at the end of the day. Like we as much as we like to speculate, and as much as we like to think about what could have happened, and as much as we like to think, you know, X, Y, and Z occurred, and then A, B, and C, those people were involved, right? We all, I think, at least in here, think similarly at times. And he brought up a point that what Payne had told Ann Taylor, and how they've had this working document that made it look like it was the investigation progressing with the dates going towards the time Bryan Kohberger was arrested, with license plates being visible. And when did they find out about who he was? When did they get the footage of his car? When did they get other footage? And how did they connect the dots? And I'm going to play this clip here of Jay and Bree, if you've seen this. So I think it's well said. And I think it shows like a lot of passion as far as, you know, again, Bryan Kohberger's life could be on the line. And just with those statements alone by LE, it is a big deal, you know, and how people can now break it down that, hey, this timeline's not accurate at all. Yes. And I think Luna just said, you know, they didn't connect the dots, they created them. So I will play this. And you haven't seen this, right?
I haven't seen today's video. So if this was today,
no, this is from Saturday night. So
I might have.
Okay. So yeah, I'll just let it play. Let me know if you can hear it. Just give me a thumbs up.
I don't do lives. When I do a video, I do it for a couple of reasons, because I want to apprise all the people that's followed me for a long time on exactly what I think happened, give them the best information I know to give them. I also do it, though, because it helps me to remember everything about this case. And I have been invested in this thing for some time now, and I want to know everything about it, and I don't want to forget anything. And making videos allows me to do that. So why would I want to do a live with anybody out there that's not looking to find the truth, just want to discuss things? That is not why I'm here. And as far as anybody wants to, talk down about me or spread rumors about me, I don't care about that anymore at this point either. I'm not here to fight with anybody. I'm here for the truth. We're less than a month and a half away from this trial where a guy goes on trial for his life. All right. All the playing and all that other stuff to the side at this point. All that old bogus stuff. Let's talk about what could have happened. Give me a break. All that stuff, in my humble opinion, is doing nothing for this situation right now. It's only the truth, finding the truth at this point before this thing goes to trial, so that we can watch what happens at trial and make sure that we speak out when we see what's wrong. And when the trial starts, that's when all of my speculation goes out the window. When the trial starts, all my investigating goes out the window. I'll report on that thing every single day, as non-biased as anybody's ever seen. And if they're able to come up with evidence that negated some of the stuff that I've looked at along the way, well, so be it. I'll be in favor if they can show me that Bryan Kohberger did this crime. At this point, there's no way they're going to show me Bryan Kohberger did this crime because of things like I showed you in this video right here. But before that happens, I mainly did this video for people that have followed me for a long time. And y'all think I don't watch it in my comments, but I can see in my comments what most people can't. I can see even my people that have been with me for a long time, how they slowly start to get a little bit weaker. And then they start to go over to what I call the dark side. They listen to too many morons and minions out there, and I can see it happening in my comments to some of my people. So I have to do a video like this just to remind them, when you have the state doing what I just explained that they did to a guy in this video, and then you got the defense team that's like just pointing it out. Hey, look, this is what happened. This is what happened, Judge. And then the judge ignores it. And you know that's what happened because they get on the stand and say, yeah, that's exactly what happened. That's what we did. We lied. We made that up, lied about that. And the defense is over there going, well, God, I mean, look, they've lied about all this, Judge. Can I get a Frank's here? Nope. When you see stuff like that happening, you cannot just sit back and go, okay, well, this guy right here must be guilty. Yeah, think about this. Think about the stuff he put in a baggie, 2 months after the crime when he's home in Pennsylvania. Give me a break. Think about the lies that the law enforcement actually admitted to on the stand in getting his affidavit and every piece of evidence in this thing, those camera footage of the WSU car leaving out. They haven't come out in the news media and said, hey, you know what? We lied about that. But no, they just made it magically disappear from their sheet. It's for those people out there that are starting to lose faith that I did this video for. And no, I don't want to debate anybody. I don't care what anybody out there says about me. This thing ain't about me. I'm involved in this case. And when this thing's over, y'all might not ever see me again, because this is the case that I want to have an impact on, and I'm going to do everything I can to have an impact on. Thank you for watching.
So, again, I'm not a huge religious follower of watching his content. Like I said, if I see some stuff, and to be honest, though, there was a point when he was kind of ranting on about that. It almost kind of felt in a weird way like a coach kind of talking to other people.
Yeah.
And I think we are all truth seekers. We all, we don't always take the narrative at face value. And I think the point that he just brought up, how I interpreted it, was, yes, we can go and we can look at stuff, and maybe I saw a couple comments like he didn't think the Linda Lane footage or the Banfield footage or a lot of the other stuff more so was as relevant as we did. I don't think he's coming at our live. I think earlier in the video he was referencing somebody else's. But regardless, what I'm trying to say is how I interpreted that is there's already evidence that there's been some suspect as hell shit that's happened in this man's case. That we could see it, but I mean, he's also saying it is right here in the paper. It's in the records. It's in the transcript. So I wanted to kind of play that and set the tone. And I made a slide as far as like, what are the top 10 discrepancies just from that hearing in January?
Yeah, I want to second something before you get into the slides, if I can, which is that I feel 100% exactly like Pavarotti, and it gets me in trouble with people too, because what he said, which is exactly how I am, and the way I word it is, I don't have a dog in this fight. If Brian Koberger is guilty, then so be it. What I want, though, is the truth, and I don't want somebody walking on the case that's involved because they took the easy answer. So just like him, when the trial comes and we see the evidence for ourselves, if it's compelling evidence, I'll be the first to say, fuck, I guess we missed something. We missed something. And there it is. And you know what? People will turn on me when I do that. They'll be like, oh, that asshole devil's advocate, I thought you presumed innocence. Like, the evidence, hopefully will speak for itself. Now, granted, we know there's some horse crap evidence and the defense is going to poke holes at it, and we're going to have that out in court. But at some level, we have to trust our legal system, and the jury is hopefully going to get it right, and we have to trust in that system. So again, there's an apprehension on my part. I feel Pavarotti's feelings, because what's going to happen is when the trial happens, I, like him, I'm going to report about it every single day, exactly how I see it. And when the prosecution does their case, it's going to look really good. This is something I tell people all the time as well, that when the prosecution's talking and the prosecution only, it's going to look good. It's going to look damning. You're going to go, well, shit, I guess he's cooked. And then as soon as the defense gets up there, you're like, well, shit, maybe he's not cooked. It's going to be a back and forth emotional ride. But I'm going to report on it as I see it. And again, it's going to make people who aren't critical thinkers go, well, which one is it? Pick a side. I'm not picking a side. My side is truth. I want truth in a fair trial. That's what I want.
Yep. Well said. And another thing that would help with a lot of people speculating is if there weren't so many redactions and there weren't, other things going on that didn't allow transparency into this. Yeah. I think from the jump, nobody wants a man who committed a quadruple homicide to walk free of committing these murders. Right. But, what I guess, again, why I wanted to show that though, is because the trial's obviously right around the corner. There's a lot of stuff. And at the end of the day, just seeing that working document be flat out admitted to being working and not following the timelines and the dates and all that stuff, it's very, very interesting. And so, I put together a slide here about it. Nice. And it's just, so the lie by omission, the origin of Brian Koberger's name via IGG was concealed in the warrant affidavit.
Can Can we stop at that? I mean, I don't know. You want to do this line by line, or do you want to go through all 10 first?
No, let's go line by line.
Because the IgG thing is what killed right off the bat. IgG. So even in Howard Bloom's book, and again, Howard Bloom is, I know people hate Howard Bloom. I'm reading his book because I'm trying to keep up on all the documentaries and all the hit pieces, including James Patterson's book that's coming out. But even he said in his book, IgG is super suspicious and it's generally not admissible. It's not good evidence. You can't use it for the PCA. So what's interesting is the FBI develops IgG information, and then because they know it's sus as hell, they basically move it to the state of, we're giving Moscow a tip. And that's how it basically comes in. It's like, we don't want to talk about the IgG and how we developed the IgG information. We don't want to have to reveal to anybody how we developed the genetic genealogy, because we know it's not really super admissible. So we're just going to call it a tip. And that drives my ass crazy, that you're going to use something that you know is suspicious to give a tip and then say, now we know it's Brian Kohberger, tip, tip, wink, wink. It's horseshit.
Yep. I agree. And I'm just kind of searching through here to show like the IgG. And one of the things, again, without having the full context of the document, which right now for people watching, we don't. But I will say that you look at what AT said here. She goes, Your Honor, there was a stipulation that all of the exhibits that were attached to the IgG motion and the Franks motion would be admitted. I'm happy to give the court my copies. That was about 1,000 pages worth of stuff. So I did not print and haul down an extra copy, but I'm happy to give the court my copy if the court wants a hard copy. And the court responds with, I've got a copy in the file. The only problem is trying to find what you're talking about quickly if you're referring to a distinct item within that. Typically, I'm provided with copies of the specific exhibits witnesses go over. I'll do my best, and whatever. Just reading that too, I understand maybe trying to find it quickly in the sense of like the conversation, but I also feel like if you're going to get into a Supreme Court death penalty case by firing squad, is quickness really even something that should be a cause of concern for how long the document is?
And what bothers me, I mean, Hitler's actions in this case, this is the thing that kills me. I mean, and again, as an aside, when I get in the courtroom, I'll be respectful to Hitler. I'm going to stand up and respect Your Honor as he walks in the office. But between you and me on the carpet here, that guy's shown so much prejudice in this case. I can't believe I haven't seen many judges that look so biased, right? I hope that he brings his game face to the court, because during the pretrial, he looks like he's like the defense is wasting his time, and this is a foregone conclusion.
And so to kind of sum up bullet point number 1, Detective Payne admitted that they intentionally omitted the IgG, which is the investigative genetic genealogy origin, from the probable cause affidavit, even though that was the singular spark that led to IDing Kohberger. That is a Franks violation if the omission was material, which it was, everyone.
Yeah.
So I don't know what was the off the top of my head, I cannot remember the justification for not allowing or not giving credit to the Franks violation. What was it?
In my opinion, there was no justification. He's a judge and he has the ultimate decision. He decided not to hear it. So, I mean, there isn't a justification other than judge has the authority to say yes or no, and he decided he wasn't going to hear it. That's my take.
Yeah. Well, then again, not only do we just see Detective Payne admit that intentionally, they ignored other DNA leads, right? Unknown males and B. And so despite multiple unknown male DNA samples being found, there was specifically was male B, blood on the handrail, and male D, blood on the gloves outside. They were not pursued once Kohberger's name came up. That is a complete confirmation bias also at a forensic level, on the most basic level.
Did you, by the way, I point two. So I'm reading Howard Bloom's book, and I just covered a chapter, and I'm like, did I miss this? Did we all, maybe I just missed it. Because here's the thing with this case, we hear things and we don't realize that, oh yeah, that's been out in circulation for years. But in Howard Bloom's book, there was 3 separate unknown male DNAs in the house. I always thought there was 2, one in the house on the rail and one outside in the glove. According to Howard Bloom's book, there's a second unknown male DNA. All 3 unknown male DNAs are not Brian Kohberger's, and they know that. So is there really 3? Because that's what Howard Bloom says in his book, is that there's 3 unknown males, different males, so 3 different males that aren't Brian Kohberger, and they just never followed up on those leads.
Is there a chance that of the 3 samples of DNA, one of them accounted for 2 of those 3. You know what I mean?
It sounded the way he wrote it like there was 3 distinct individuals,
Yeah.
not like 2 individuals, but 3 drops, but like 3 separate individuals. That's the way it read. I mean, I don't want to waste your time, but I could pull it up and read the sentence. But yeah,
you can. I mean, if you got it on you. I mean,
well, I'll look at it while we continue on, and I'll bring back to it.
Okay, so you kind of touched on point number 3 right off the jump when I brought the slide up, but it's that they called the IGG they called the IGG tip just a tip. Yet they tailored the entire warrant to fit it, right? So the FBI, quote unquote, just gave a name, and the team supposedly, quote unquote, just did an independent verification. Yet every single warrant detail came only after they got the IGG result, meaning this wasn't independent. It was reverse engineering.
Yeah.
A probable cause to justify a search. Again, that I do have a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory that's not like, the moon is a map of the earth and that, eating fake salt doesn't allow you to astral project. Like, I know I joke about those ones kind of. I have one today that's relevant to this case. Actually, it's going to go hand in hand with this slide. So
I did find that quote, by the way, about the 3 DNA.
Yeah, go for it.
So in When the Night Comes Falling, this is page 179 in my notes here. This is what it says. He was talking about the defenses, what they have on their side, and it says it insightfully pointed out that back in the early stages of the case, the prosecution had been made aware of 2 additional male DNA found inside the King Road residence, as well as a male DNA on a glove found outside the residence just days after the murders. If the DNA had been Koberger's, the prosecution would have been trumpeting this revelation. The state's stony silence, the defense believed, can only mean one thing. The DNA came from 3 other men. And that left an obvious yet very pertinent question unanswered. Who are they, and how do these 3 unknown men fit into the horrific events that night?
Wow. Yeah, that does sound like 3 different people.
Now, again, Bloom is not an authority, and Bloom could be wrong about it. But according to Howard Bloom's thing, he makes it clear that he thought there was 3 separate male DNA inside the house, aside from Brian Koberger's.
Interesting. I'm sure that he would only put out 100% truthful information.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Well, the 4th one, kind of going off that point of reverse engineering the probable cause to justify a search, right? The vehicle description shifted conveniently after the IGG reveal. And so before December 19th, investigators were looking for a 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra, but Koberger drove a 2015. After the IGG named him, they expanded the year range to fit him. It's a classic case of post-HOC justification. Now, one of the things that's interesting in that document, it talks about how the person, their expert that was identifying the make and model of the Elantra, had said something to the effect of 2011 to 2016. And then in the document, it says, I'll actually pull this up here. In the document, it says 5 minutes later, he recanted that and said, actually, I feel better just sticking with 2011 to 2013. And they just completely ignored that second email.
That's interesting. Do you have that quote? Because
I'm trying to find it.
It's interesting because I thought it was the other way. And I hope you're right, what you just said, because I thought what he said was 5 minutes after saying he was going to narrow it. He said it was between 2011 and 13. He said, actually, I'd feel more comfortable if we broadened it to 16, which is what they were trying to say. See, it's not like we came up with that idea a long time after finding Brian Koberger. Within moments of saying 2011 to 13, he said, I'd feel more comfortable if we broadened it to. So did he go the other direction?
I think he went the other direction and they just completely ignored it.
That's nuts.
I think right away, and I'm trying to remember, what was that? He had said, because I just typed in 2011 through 2013.
Yeah, there's right there. I see a question. What would you agree was the most comfortable with the years 2011 to 2013?
I don't know if it's going to be in the transcripts or it'll be at the bottom showing the emails. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. I wanted to say it was in the transcript, but I don't see it. I was looking for a 2016 to jump out as the But yeah. Anyways, yeah, you can take your time and look for it if you want, or we can move on. But I don't remember. I wish I knew exactly. But anyways, either way, the point is that they originally had the wrong years that they were looking for. They expanded it. And the question becomes, did they only expand it after they were told of the tip of Brian Koberger and realized his vehicle didn't fit the years, or whether they did it right away and corrected their mistake? That's the $1 million question.
Yes. Look at this question right here. Are you aware that, well, you probably know because Nicholas Balance was collocated with you. Is that how you say that word?
Co-located
with you. Did the two of you continually work on language to satisfy what the prosecutor wanted to see for probable cause?
Yes.
I mean,
right. And this is, to go back to what we said earlier, how I said, well, when I'm in the court, if I see good evidence, but this is the kind of evidence that's coming into court. They're admitting that they freaking, I don't even know how you can say it's good evidence, because we've seen what's in the pretrial hearings. If that shit gets into a jury, which I'm sure it's going to be, Ann Taylor has to bring this out. She's in fact, that's what Ann Taylor's doing with all this. She's setting up for the record. She said, she's going to do this when the trial comes. Do you remember on the record when you told me? And all that shit's coming right back in. So a jury is going to hear that. But
yes, absolutely they will. And so then the fifth one kind of goes off of what we just read in that document randomly. The timing of that's crazy. The affidavit was ghostwritten by multiple entities with no attribution. Detective Payne admitted large portions of the affidavit weren't even written by him, but pulled from agents and experts.
Right. And Taylor asked him, are you aware that there's several people claiming that this document was written by them? Yes, because we were all working on it and everybody had a little hand in it,
Yeah. So others were claiming it as their own work. It's a massive integrity issue in a legal document that's central to probable cause. And already reading this, one of the things that I think that could really affect all of us is look at how just like kind of open they are about like, oh yeah, we did that. Yeah, we had a lot of people. That's true. Yeah, right. That is it. And the language that they use, it's like they're leaving out just enough. They're leaving out just enough to get that language that the prosecutor wanted to see. For example, if I was right, devil's advocates talking about that it was that he went back to the 2011 and 2013 and they left that part out, regardless, leaving it out is crazy.
Yeah.
So, number 6 was suppression of the FBI's lack of conclusive DNA match. The FBI didn't say it was Koberger's DNA, everybody. Let's say that louder for everybody. The FBI did not say it was Koberger's DNA. They only said he was one of several possible sources. Yet the narrative implied a near match, which is completely a misleading presentation of forensic certainty.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just it. Like there's it's the same thing with the cell towers, which you might have on the list. Same thing with the cell towers. They're using a lot of manipulation. The question is going to be, is a jury, is Ann Taylor or whoever she has up there to do that presentation going to be able to convince a jury that they're playing word games, that they're trying to trick the jury into thinking the evidence is stronger than it is? Because that's exactly what they're doing. All in every step of this case, they're trying to overplay how strong the evidence is by using word games that they hope an uneducated jury is not going to understand. But
I agree. And I don't know what angle the prosecution could even take to justify some of these answers by Payne in this document.
Yeah.
I don't know. How could they flip it?
It's a shit show.
So then moving on, the CODIS database was circumvented to avoid standard protocol, meaning that they didn't use CODIS because it would erase the knife sheath DNA, but CODIS is the standard forensic protocol for such matches. Instead, they went to a non-transparent private database system through Othram, and the FBI once again decided to sidestep their procedural guidelines and used it as another hurdle that let's just step around this one. We can just go to them. I mean,
Yeah, the IgG is going to be a major thing, and in another case, I'm starting to follow the Gilgo Beach murders. Are doing the same thing with IgG information to link the thing. And I've had Ali Benevento, who, as you know, was on your show with us a while back. She's like, DNA evidence is somewhat good, but it's also horseshit in a lot of ways. And then this IgG stuff is a lot of horseshit. But again, can you convince a jury? Because again, what happens is you baffle a jury with science, and you tell the jury science is science and it can't be argued. And a lot of people in America believe you can't argue with science. Science is what science is, and they seem to misunderstand that you can take any scientific fact and build a narrative about it that's incorrect. So while science might be science, you can tell a story that's incorrect from the data. But
the other thing that's so funny is everybody wants to trust science, and none of us know science. We only know what we've been told about science. Like, if you think about that, even the article that came out in 2009 about how they said with 423 individuals' DNA, they could make any conceivable DNA profile, meaning you, me, anybody in the chat, without having our DNA present.
Right. So if you're a corrupt law enforcement and you know who you want to be at the scene, you can create a DNA profile to place them at the scene. And some people in America think that it would never happen. Cops don't do that kind of shit. You're a crazy ass conspiracy theorist. But yeah, did they work backwards? Did they say, we know it's Kohberger, but now we got to be able to place him at the scene, so we'll just develop the DNA profile, and voila, we place Kohberger at the scene.
Yeah. And to everybody saying that that's a crazy conspiracy, I mean, that came out of a scientific journal out of Israel back in 2009. That's when the New York Times wrote about it, for God's sake. So how long was it really out and available till it became a mainstream news article, right? And in the article, they say two things that are pretty profound. And it's that any undergrad biology student could do this. And to test their theory, if they could do it, they sent it to the top DNA labs in the country that are used in like that, whatever, like a court case or a trial would use.
Yeah.
The top one, and not detected one time. Nobody caught it. Dude, that's 2009, bro. It's 2025.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, shit, at this point, they could make a clone of you and MK Ultra your ass, and you could go do all this, and then they're going to have you argue with your clone who was really there. How do we know? I mean, they probably have so much science and technology that we'll never know about, obviously.
So two things before I forget what I wanted to make a point. I think my gut tells me the most compelling, because we can question the car, we can question the cell phone, we can question a million things. We could even question the buying of the K-bar knife kind of thing. But what is damning to most jurors is, how do you explain his DNA getting in the house? That's what's going to be compelling. So the question is going to be whether the jury can be convinced that DNA evidence is not reliable. And the really crazy part about this, to me, as I understand it, I did some research and I'm trying to make sure I understand this correctly. Hitler has allowed the prosecution and law enforcement to not reveal to the defense how the profile was developed, and he's letting them hide behind the shield of that's law enforcement secrets. How we developed it and what we did and our techniques and our procedures are protected law enforcement secrets on how we do that. And Hitler allowed them to hide behind that. And I've seen constitutional rights specialists who are saying you can't do that. A person who's accused has the right to challenge the evidence against them. You can't say you're not allowed to see the evidence against you. So to this day, if it's true, Hitler has not allowed the defense to examine how the profile was developed. I don't understand how this isn't a civil rights violation that's going to be appealed all day long, because you have the right to see and challenge the evidence before you. And saying, nope, that's law enforcement secrets, trade secrets, you can't know, that doesn't fly.
Dude, and think about, we're on bullet point we're about to read number 8. And still, all of this has happened. You haven't heard a peep out of him.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. The number 8 is the prosecutors and detectives modified the narrative for the judge knowingly, meaning that Payne and FBI cast member Nicholas is it Balance or Balanchi, however you say it,
I
altered.
think it's Balance.
Yeah, altered the affidavit language specifically to quote unquote satisfy what the prosecutor wanted to see. We just read that. That's manufactured probable cause, not objective investigation.
I want to pause for a second. Somebody asked in the chat. They were asking me a question about why is Ann Taylor allowing them to do what they're doing with the DNA evidence, and the answer, in my opinion, is, thanks for putting it up there. The answer is this: unfortunately, both sides don't have a choice. The judge makes the final ruling, so they can argue, and and if they don't like the decision by the judge, they'll make a note of it, and it'll go to an appeal process when this is all done. So if Brian Koberger, if Ann says, hey, we need to see the evidence on how the FBI developed the profile, and if Hitler says you're not going to see it, not allowed, that's where that ends in the courtroom for the entirety of the trial. The judge has made a ruling, he said no, and there's nothing they can do about it. But what you do is you make a little mark, and when the trial's over, and if he gets convicted, you go, you know what? He was convicted on the fact that we weren't allowed to challenge the DNA, and then a higher court's going to come in and they're going to say, is it true that the judge didn't allow you to see it? And there'll be appeals, and that's how that process works. So the reason why Ann has, and it kind of goes along with this, why has Ann conceded that Brian Koberger's DNA was at the scene and essentially now is moving toward this, but maybe it was planted? She's conceding to it because Hitler's not allowing her. He's not allowing her to challenge the DNA. So because when he told her, I'm not going to allow you to argue that it wasn't his DNA, she had no choice but to say, okay, fine. So if it is his DNA, then prove how it got there. So I think she's just forced by what the judge is giving her. And these are all things for appeal later.
That would see, like, that's, you know how I've said before, devil's advocates, that I could never be like a reporter, because if I ask somebody a question that should just have a straightforward answer, and I got, I can't talk about it, it's an ongoing investigation, I wouldn't be able to let it go. I'd be like, no, you're gonna have to, like,
right?
Same thing with a lawyer. I'd just be like, okay, well, I can't move on. Okay, like, you need to explain this to me, So
yeah, but unfortunately, the way the court system is, the judge is the final authority, and you just have to, it's the whole reason why we have objections and stuff like that, is the objections are your basis for appeal. So if you don't object and you just take it, if you just like, give me the Vaseline, I'm going to take this one, you don't get to complain about it later. But if you object, then that could be appealed later.
The forensic lab manager admitted she wasn't qualified in S&P, which is the kind of DNA used in IgG, and she couldn't verify what databases were used, how the data was processed, or if the DOJ's preservation policy was even followed. So Again, guys, holy hell. This is from one hearing.
Yeah, and the thing is like, there was an expert. I'm sure everybody knows this, but I'm just going to cover it briefly. There was an expert that came on and said, as soon as I saw what the FBI had done, I knew they went into databases they're not supposed to go into. And so Ann Taylor, brought up the objection about, did law enforcement use databases that are not authorized for law enforcement? And the answer that everybody seems to, the guilters are saying is, it may not have been morally or ethically allowed, but it's not illegal. So quit saying that they did something illegal. They didn't do anything illegal. They just violated their own procedures by using a database that law enforcement's not supposed to go to. And the big issue, and maybe nobody gives a shit, I've hit it before and I'm going to hit it one more time. The big issue is when I decide to submit my DNA to 23andMe or Ancestry because I want to find out if I have a long lost brother or sister, I am not consenting to law enforcement using my DNA for whatever the hell they want to use it for, because I don't trust law enforcement. I don't want my DNA ending up at a crime scene because I put it into a database for them to use. So places like Ancestry and 23andMe promise their users, law enforcement will not use your DNA. And that's why we agree to submit our DNA willingly to these databases. But you know what the government said? We don't give a shit. I don't care that they said that we wouldn't do it. We're going to do it anyways. And when someone called them on it, they're like, it's not illegal for us to do so. It may have been a problem for you, but it's not illegal. So we did it anyways.
And I want to go back to how you started that by saying what the quote unquote guilters would say is, well, it may not be like morally or ethically correct, but it's not illegal. I just want to say to anybody who thinks that way, it's like, wake up, because now it's used in a Supreme Court case where somebody could be put into a murder room firing squad by the press of a button. You know how like attorneys argue like this is legally admissible and they reference a court case Like that's now in a court case that could eventually get codified and become law and completely change a shit ton in the legal world. So yeah, it is a big deal. And one of the things that I'll say about America is that, in my opinion, we have a justice system. Okay. We don't have a land of the law system. We have a justice system. I've given this example before, but I've said, if you commit a crime by breaking a law, you then go in front of a panel or a jury of your peers, and they rule if breaking that law was just. Okay.
Right.
So I've given this example, but it's like, let's say you're standing in the middle of the street like a dumbass devil's advocate. I see you. I go, I don't want my friend to go get hit by this 18-wheeler coming down the road. And I tackle you out of the way. And then your leg breaks. You, wanting to just be a douchebag, take me to court and sue me for assault because I broke your leg. Okay. In a land of just laws, I would be convicted. You're right. On face value, I did assault you. They could justify I did, or they could claim that all I did was this. But that's where a jury comes in and they say, well, was the action that Birdie took just? Well, yeah, he didn't want to see his friend get splattered all over the road by an 18-wheeler. So tackling him out of the way, clearly Devil's Advocates was not thinking clearly. So I think it was just, and he should not be sued for assault. That is how our legal system should work. So it does have a lot of ethical and moral aspects to it that should be in place.
And this is also exactly why the jury's decision is final, and they don't have to explain themselves to a judge. So the jury is asked to consider the law and consider all factors and decide, just like you say, is it just or not? Is this the right law to apply? And if it is, was it justly applied? And if the jury says no, it wasn't justly applied, the judge doesn't have any say over it. The jury's decision is final. And there's been times in this country when somebody has broke the letter of the law and the jury said, but it was justified, or the law didn't adequately address this particular situation. So we're not going to say that that's an appropriate use of the law in this place. And that's it. So yeah, it happens.
Yeah. I mean, you gave a much more realistic example to this case. I've tried, but you get my point. And I think,
sure.
Most people can wrap their head around it. And so ultimately that leads us to bullet point 10, which is the entire process was structured to avoid discovery and transparency, meaning that the evidence from the IgG work, including the raw data, family trees, and specific match probabilities, they were not disclosed, nor were they preserved, despite DOJ interim policy requiring it. That is potentially a Brady material suppression violation.
And what drives me insane, I mean, at the end of the day, all the manipulation that had to go, this is what, I don't know if I can get this out and articulate it. All of the manipulation that had to go into the PCA to get a magistrate judge. So a magistrate, for those who don't know, is basically a judge that just kind of handles procedural things like issuing the arrest warrant. I maintain the magistrate judge would not have signed off on the PCA to go and arrest Brian Koberger if it hadn't been manipulated and falsely made that magistrate believe that they had information that they didn't have. And yet we can't unscrew ourselves now, because they're not going to come back and say, by the way, the PCA was faulty. The judge would have never signed off on it if they had thrown this out, and this out, which wasn't allowed, and go, oops, our bad. Let's unarrest him. Let's take him off trial. They're not going to undo it. So at this point, you're left with, it was a faulty, in a way, it was a faulty arrest by a manipulated PCA that no judge would have signed off if it had been done correctly. But yet it's too late. We've done it. So now we have to keep going forward.
It's like, and it's not just if you spit in a tube to find out if you're part Viking. How many samples did they get from those COVID tests, scrambling your brain, going halfway up your nose? Right. Do you think they just threw those things away? I'm sure they wouldn't just keep those. No, they'd probably throw all that very valuable DNA away and not sell it to a company.
Someday, not now, someday you and I should talk about the Johnson & Johnson being delivered to poor counties where the government was allowing citizens to get that couldn't afford it in poor areas to get a certain vaccine because they'd label all the lots and what communities are getting what lots. There's conspiracy theories around about how they use the DNA in poor communities. But did you freeze? Did I freeze?
Am I back?
You're back.
Well, I've
Guess
seen
who's
data
back?
tables on like certain lots of having more injuries or more, whatever. But I do want to address, I'm whenever I see a comment like Marco's, again, I try to address it. Like, I am curious. So Marco, if you're caught up live and that was relevant to what we just talked about as far as comparing to apples to oranges, if you're talking about my example of tackling somebody out of the way of an 18-wheeler and breaking their leg, yes, I understand, but that was to prove a different point, not that was not relevant to just the comment devil's advocates made about how guilters will say it doesn't matter if it wasn't or if it wasn't morally or ethically right, it's not illegal. That was the point I was making. So I'm just curious. But yeah, so I mean, I would say this: the entire investigation looks like a classic case of investigative tunnel vision.
Right. And I don't know, I don't know what happens next, because I mean, the prosecution seems to be playing dirty pool from the beginning. The federal government seems to be playing dirty pool from the beginning, and the judge doesn't seem to care at all. It clearly believes that Kohberger is guilty and thinks that the defense is wasting all of our time. And here's the sad thing for Brian Kohberger. If Brian Kohberger is not guilty, I don't know if Ann Taylor is a strong attorney to go in there and make the best case for him. Like we need a Johnny Cochran or some high level fluting, really good talking lawyer who can connect with the jury. I don't know if that's Ann Taylor or not. I hope she brings in another lawyer to do the trial litigation, but I doubt it.
I understand that it's obviously the state's paying for his prosecution, the state's paying for his defense. Yeah. Are you a little bit surprised that like some hotshot pro bono lawyer hasn't taken this or hasn't joined the team? Or
I guess I never really thought about it before, but I mean, yeah, I mean, it definitely has national attention. I am a little bit surprised that but I guess we're probably too far along for somebody to jump in and, you're not going to reassign an attorney at this point kind of thing. But I guess I'm surprised a little bit that somebody didn't offer to take this case on. Yeah. Now that you're asking.
Well, I feel like I wasn't alive during the OJ case, but going off the docuseries, which was a phenomenal series, didn't they continue to stack his team with really powerful attorneys? And then actually pretty close to the trial, didn't they switch who the lead attorney was?
Yes, they did. Yeah, they had at least 5 high power, very, very high powered attorneys in the country that were working on his team. And they would take different days because some attorneys were better at litigating scientific data and other people like a Johnny Cochran were better at relating to human beings and making the emotional appeal. So different lawyers would take, but you're right. There was a point when the lead attorney changed because they got into fights in the courtroom, apparently, according to the documentary that you're talking about, where they had a difference of opinion on how the case would go forward. And they switched the lead because the other attorneys felt the one guy had a better handle on it.
Well, and also too, I don't want that to be confused with me. I'm not saying Ann Taylor's not doing a wonderful job or that she's a bad attorney.
Right.
It's curious from, again, like not to talk about a bunch of different cases because I have a point to make on what could potentially happen to Brett Payne and LE, after the fact from if Brian Kohberger ever wanted to go on a revenge tour type thing. But with like Stephen Avery, that was another really good series. Obviously, he's from the same state that I'm at. There's so much stuff going on behind the scenes that when I forget that lady's name out of Chicago who took it.
Oh, I know who you're talking about too.
Help me out.
Like the Innocence Project chick.
Took it over after the case. Really from it. Anyways, but it's like after the fact, look at how obvious it was with like kind of like the whole fresh eyes thing. They just talked about the corruption and the lawsuit that the case had from his first, exoneration. And I had a whole conspiracy theory that somebody on Stephen Avery's defense team was paid off, and it was cheaper to pay somebody off on the defense team than to pay that lawsuit if he was found, innocent again. And what I mean by that is that if you go and look up every time that this kind of weird evidence showed up, like the keychain and the blood on it, the casing, it was always right after the defense team was there.
Yeah.
That is weird.
That is. And that was such a great documentary. Whoever put
Kathleen
that together,
Zellner.
Zellner, yes. Yeah.
So,
Anyways, yeah, that was a great series.
but okay.
And yet, despite Zellner's efforts, he's still in jail, right? He still hasn't gotten out.
I don't believe he's gotten out. No.
Yeah.
The forced confession too.
Oh, God.
Brennan. I mean,
Yeah,
Jesus
yeah.
H, dude.
Right. It's disgusting.
It's.
And I wonder how can we get a fair trial in this country? There's so many people that are just railroaded by the prosecution and judges that allow shit to come in. It's like, how do we have a fair trial?
Right. Well, the other thing, so going back to this list and you look at that and you have Detective Payne, who is admitting this, very straightforward. And it's like, what's a telltale that the system is going to protect their own in situations like this, where we think it's like, oh, it's a failure, but somehow they fail forward.
Right.
And I believe he was promoted relatively quietly.
Yeah.
Is that because he's a quote unquote like a good soldier?
Right.
Is he taking the fall for decisions that were made way above him and they're going to promote him? I don't know.
People do fail forward. I mean, again, I in that Gilgo Beach thing, their last documentary showed a corrupt cop that got promoted all the way up, bypassed like 4 different promotion levels and went straight to chief of police. And people were like, how'd that hell happen? That's a corrupt cop. Everybody knows he's a corrupt cop. And he bypassed a bunch of things and just failed forward and got himself, chief of police position.
Right. So, and so now it's like, but again, it's just, there's a lot of stuff that, working against Brian that seems to be like a judgment call made under duress.
Yeah.
Like when they're really, really important things. And I think this IGG is going to end up getting painted as like a non-material technicality, not just if it's not already in the case. I think even down the road, I don't think it's going to be something that's really talked about too much, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm a little terrified about how the DNA stuff is going to play out in the court system. But I'm a little terrified about it. Like, again, it all comes down to how smart our jury is and and if you start baffling with too much science, do they just default in their mind to, I can't understand this, but I guess science is science. So they tell me it's good and I'm just gonna have to go with it. I don't know. I
mean, who knows? And so of notes here, just to get your thoughts on too. But do you that we're going to see Kohberger's team ever escape this kind of
Hey, your audio is breaking up bad for me. Is it breaking up for everybody else?
Well, hopefully not. I don't know what's going on. Is it still shitty?
No, it's okay at the moment.
But I was going to say, do you think Kohberger's team having a fight in a circumstantial telephone booth, essentially, where they can just have everything out in the open, or do you think it's too late?
Well, again, you broke up right when you went back to repeating yourself, which was awesome. Like you literally, you're like, hey, is everything good? And I'm like, yep. Okay. And then you start to repeat your sentence and it all broke up during the entire question again. It was like horrendous.
All right. I'm going to disconnect my Wi-Fi. 1 second. Hopefully that's better.
I hope so too. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not just me, because other people are saying that you were cutting out for them too. So I was like, oh my gosh, maybe it's just me. But no, you were asking something to the effect of, do you think the defense is going to just have to something? And I wasn't quite, getting the question. But.
Okay. What I was going to say is that Kohberger's team seems to be boxed into like a circumstantial trap. Like they're fighting this case in a telephone booth.
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be a moment in the trial where we see that telephone booth door get like opened up and they can actually make all of these points to the jury? Because it seems like almost everything that could be one of those big issues where a juror hears that one thing. It's like, listen to the Karen Reed jurors that are kind of getting some flack right now, where they're like, they just poked so many holes in it. They're like, we don't even know if she did or not. The prosecution just poked so many holes in it.
Yeah, and this is one of those moments where I wish that I had Allie with us, because she made a comment the other day that really stuck with me, which is that the defense, how does she word it? She basically said something to the effect of the prosecution has to reveal to the defense everything that they're going to do and bring forward in court, but the defense doesn't have to show everything, all their cards to the prosecution. And so I was like, really? So she's like, the defense can have some surprises for, it shouldn't be the other way around. Like, you should be no surprises in the prosecution. We know exactly what you have, but the defense can hold some surprises back. And I imagine if I'm understanding what she said correctly, like, for example, let's say the prosecution brings in, I don't know, like a DoorDash driver to go on the stand, right? So they divulge, we're going to bring in Molly, the DoorDash driver. And so the defense says, okay, we want to be able to cross-examine her, but the defense doesn't necessarily have to tell you what that cross-examine is going to entail, right? The prosecution is going to have to tell the defense, we're going to ask her about material information. We're going to ask her about identifying Brian Koberger at the scene, blah, blah, blah. They have to kind of lay it out to the defense, but the defense can kind of be like, okay, we're going to cross. And the prosecution may not know what that cross is going to look like. And that can come out with a whole bunch of surprises that we can see in court. So it'd be interesting.
Do you think there's any chance in hell that the prosecution's case completely collapses and the state is forced to dismiss charges or refile under new framework?
Unfortunately, because I'm a cynic, I don't think that's a probability that they're going to dismiss everything. Best case scenario, I think, for him is I feel that this could end in a mistrial or a hung jury if they can't. If Ann Taylor has a good enough alternative suspect and questions that law enforcement didn't follow up on, and if the jury can be convinced that they went hail-male on Brian Koberger once they got his name and never looked at anybody else, then it could easily, in my opinion, be a hung jury. They could be like, well, they didn't follow up on other leads, and they had decided at one point it was Brian Koberger, and it was all in, and they stopped looking. And I think that's a very strong possibility for him. But I think the trial goes through. I don't think they're gonna mistrial the thing. I think it's going to be more like it's going to go to its conclusion, but the jury may hang. That's my guess. But
a plea deal with a sealed record. Could you imagine that, then? Oh my God. They'll drop the charges without prejudice if they start to fear an acquittal, or they're going to negotiate behind closed doors to avoid like a full trial that could risk national embarrassment. I think there is a possibility for that. I really strongly feel that way.
And according to Howard Bloom's masterpiece of truthfulness, he claims that this is Bill Thompson's last rodeo. This is his very last trial, and that he wants to go out on a bang. So he was talking about how Bill Thompson's a rock star. He worked for 30 years. He actually got a conviction on somebody where there was no body, and he still managed to convict somebody of murder when there was no body actually in the thing. And so they're like, there's no way Bill Thompson's not going out with a victory. He's going to go out on a bang on this one. This is going to be his last hurrah. I don't know what that says for the case, but that's what the prosecution thinks, is this guy wouldn't have taken the case if he couldn't win it, and he wants to go out on a good note,
I just wonder too, in general, yeah, man, that's crazy. That's crazy to get a conviction without a body.
Right.
I mean, wait, that is the wildest shit I've ever heard.
It can be done. And that's why they said it can be done. And he did it. And that's why they say that he's like a rock star in the prosecution world, because he was one of the rare people that can get a conviction without a body.
Well, if you think about it in this case, we've seen no footage of the bodies. There's no motive. There's no murder weapon. Maybe he's really going out with a bang. He's going to just completely prove and get a conviction with nothing. There's no autopsies that we've seen. Allegedly, they did them. I'm completely speculating, kind of being a little facetious here, but you get my point. And, the IGG cover story just seems way too thin, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't think the IGG stuff is going to hold up under scrutiny. And I think once they get into, Hitler may not have allowed certain things in the pretrial, but I think when they get into the court, it's going to be a different story, that they're going to be able to, bring stuff up in cross-examination that will make it clear to the jury that there's shenanigans going on. So I'm hoping that comes out.
I do wonder if this case will ever end up leading to like a constitutional challenge that could become a landmark case if it hits the appellate courts.
Yeah, for sure. I think so.
Like, would it be a Fourth Amendment one?
I think it was Sixth. Is it the Sixth Amendment that it's the due process amendment? I think that's one I'm thinking that they're violating his due process by not letting him see all the evidence that's before him. That may be a big one, and maybe the Fourth Amendment. I don't know.
Well,
I think there's constitutional, and that's what. By the way, I have to, as an aside, I keep bringing up Howard Bloom's crap book, but he points out in the book as well that the prosecution actually, get this, I don't know if you know this, the prosecution actually petitioned the state to make sure. Here's some tidbits to make sure that the state had all the chemicals on hand for lethal injection, because it's sometimes they run out of the chemicals or they don't have them, they expire, whatever. And so they made a request to make sure the state has the chemicals on hand, and then push to have the firing squad as a backup option, and push for an alternative because they recently, last year, they fucked up pardon my French, on an execution of a serial killer in Idaho that they tried to give him an IV 8 times and failed and didn't get the lethal injection. So they've done the prosecution done everything they can to make sure that we execute Bryan Kohberger quickly. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know how you can execute somebody quickly, because this is already going to be appealed. This is going to go to appellate courts, I almost guarantee you, regardless of how it comes out. And so I don't understand how they can rush to make sure they execute them as quickly as possible and make sure those chemicals are on thing and we've got the firing squad ready and we can put them to death as quickly as possible, like they're hell bent on killing the guy, when this is going to go to appeals. This is going to take time.
Yeah, that is interesting. This is completely random. Like, you know, you and I have gone deep about like random, like we're all connected, the universal consciousness, right? Okay. You just said, pardon my French.
Yeah.
Dude, somebody sent me yesterday the history of the middle finger.
Yeah.
And how, pardon my French, came to be. Have you ever heard the origin?
I think I did long ago. Finger? I don't remember. I think I did hear it.
Okay. Because I didn't know this before. So now I feel compelled to share it with all of my intelligent friends in the Hive here. So before the Battle of Agincourt, the French, anticipating victory over the English, proposed to cut off the middle finger of all captured English soldiers. Without the middle finger, it would be impossible to draw the renowned English longbow, and therefore they would be incapable of fighting in the future. The famous English longbow was made of native English yew tree, and the act of drawing the longbow was known as plucking the yew, or pluck yew. Much to the bewilderment of the French, the English won a major upset and began mocking the French by waving their middle fingers at the defeated French, saying, "See, we can still pluck you." Over the decades, Americans have since changed up the words. The pluck you is now fuck you, and the words often used in conjunction with the one finger salute. It's also because of this. It is also because of the pheasant feathers on the arrows used with the longbow that the symbolic gesture is known as giving the bird.
See, this is an educational channel, sir.
Yeah.
That is quality education right there.
Yes, absolutely. Anyways, that's crazy. I do wonder. So just to go back to the IGG, because like I said, it's not just the testimony by Detective Payne, right? I obviously started with kind of Jay and Bree's thing about talking about like there's a man's life here on the line. I would like to think that the jury would understand that. And I do wonder if kind of the heavy judicial gatekeeping and limiting the mention of IGG and preventing like deep questioning of FBI sources, trying to keep all of the eyes on the traditional evidence, when, to your point about the defense using the cross-examination to their benefit,
yeah,
do they force the jury to connect dots where it makes them say, wait, where did this all begin? Because that could be an effective strategy.
Well, and another thing people, I think, well, I don't know but the jury's allowed to ask questions as well. So even during the trial, they can pass notes to the judge and say, we want to go back and hear the testimony about this, or we need a clarification about this, or whatever. So and when that happens, the judge is really, and this is just my opinion, really compelled to answer the questions of the jury. So where I'm going with this is, if the defense has already been ruled by Hitler, we're not going to talk about a certain thing, but a juror asks the question. Now he's got to address it because the jury's asking it, kind of thing. So he might have been like, you know what, you're not allowed to bring this up. We don't want to bring this up. But a jury says, hey, wait a minute. We want to know, what does touch DNA really mean? Does that mean he physically had to touch the knife? And like, if Hitler said, you're not allowed to argue about the word touch DNA, we're going to call it touch DNA, end of story. But a juror slips a note and says on a break, can you clarify, Judge, does touch DNA mean you physically touched it? Then he's going to have to address that and be like, okay, well, a juror has asked us to clarify this. So there's going to be some interesting shenanigans if you have a smart jury that asks the right questions. And I've seen some crazy jury questions, it seems like, where the jurors ask a question, you're like, and it also tips your hand on how the jury's feeling, because the questions they ask, you're like, oh shit, did they just ask that? Then they must be thinking there's something sketchy with this, case.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, yeah, and I do wonder too if this entire trial ends up being a litmus test for this whole IgG thing, because it's not how forensic science is supposed to work in the court system.
Yeah. I think you're right. This case, and even probably Rex Heuermann's case and the Go-Go thing in New York, these cases are, like you said, they're setting foundations, right? These will be how this gets ruled upon here will be quoted and cited in future cases, like, well, in Hitler's case against Koberger, blah, 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 they ruled this. So I do think that in some regards, there is probably going to be some, what do you want to call it? Landmark decisions made, right? That this case may set the precedent about what can and can't be done with IgG and things like that in future cases. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. And so ultimately what it really comes down to is, if Brian Koberger walks, it's the system failed.
Right.
And if Brian Koberger is convicted, it's the system worked. So it's split. Like, do you see, let me ask the Hive, type a 1 if in the last year you have changed your mind to Brian Koberger might not be guilty. And for the people that have always thought that he's been guilty, I guess you don't necessarily have to participate. I'm curious about the people on the fence, because it seems like that's been a trend, at least in America, I'm sure all over the world, that, something can be ruled on and it's like, it messes with your own worldview, so you just choose to not accept it.
Right. I reject your reality and I substitute my own.
Yeah. So look at how many ones are in the chat, dude.
Yeah. So these are people that originally thought he was guilty, and now they're wondering that maybe he's not. Yeah. Well, that's great. That's fantastic, because again, we should believe in the presumption of innocence, and we should, and the prosecution by design has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And you should have reasonable doubt going in. So it's a good to feel that some people do have reasonable doubts, and that the prosecution has to overcome those reasonable doubts to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that there's nobody else that could have done it.
Right. Well, and that's kind of, that's one of the things that I wanted to start to talk about, is like, the prosecution is going to lay out a very, very clean narrative. I think you actually referenced that earlier in the stream, like DNA on the knife sheath, white Elantra seen on camera, Koberger doesn't have an alibi, digital breadcrumbs, game over, right? Like,
right.
That's very, very clean narrative. But the defense, I believe, can still counter and say, well, you're going to learn that the only reason they found Koberger is because the FBI gave them his name through undisclosed means. Right. Then they rewrote this case to fit him, and we have Detective Payne admitting this.
Right. And again, I don't know. I can't remember if Idaho, different states have different orders of who gets present first and who gets present last sometimes. But I would imagine, that the prosecution's going to start. They're going to lay out a huge case about why he's the guy. And then the defense, the best strategy, I think, is what you just said, which is to say, here's the thing. You're going to find out that they didn't have a clue who Brian Koberger was for a month after the murders. And only after the FBI gave them his name did they go back and fit all the data to fit the guy.
Exactly.
And God help us if they do the same thing to you. if they decide that you're the guy and then go back and build a case around circumstantial evidence to put you there because now they got their guy. So if they can make that case to the jury that, hey, look, nobody had a clue of who Bryan Kohberger was for a month, and then they get a tip, and then they went and fit the data. They did the proverbial pounding a square peg into a round hole and made him fit the case. And now it looks like he's guilty, but we cry horseshit.
Right. Well,
they could do that with anybody.
I do wonder if under cross-examination, the FBI may even confirm it wasn't a match and they did just give the name of a potential match.
I feel like they won't. I mean, I wish they would, but I feel like they won't do that. I just feel like they're never going to admit. They're going to do every little wordplay they can to get around. Because, of course, yeah, I just feel like they're going to avoid it. They're going to try to avoid any way saying that they did anything wrong.
Well,
and if they had,
so Detective Payne is. So is he going to take the stand in trial as well?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yes. I was going to say there's nothing that could possibly keep him from it because
I don't think so.
Yeah. The state is going to clearly paint him as like diligent. He's calm, procedural. That's how you always see the state interview cops.
Yeah.
Again, under the cross-examination, we kind of already know he's going to admit the IgG was intentionally hidden from the affidavit.
Yeah.
The what was the other one? The kind of ghost written portions of the PCA, and that every investigative lead was after they got Kohberger's name.
Yeah. I anticipate Payne's testimony to be a little contentious because, again, Ann Taylor was masterful in getting him to admit that they didn't know who Kohberger was until the FBI gave him the name. And she went back to that a bunch of times. By the way, so it was only after the 19th when they gave you the name that you did this. Yes. Okay. So before the 19th, you didn't know his name. Right. And so after you got his name, and she would hit it 20 times. What's going to happen is when they get on the stand, I anticipate that Payne's going to try to avoid that shit. And she's going to be like, do you recall when I asked you 5 times under oath if the first time you heard his name was the 19th? Well, yeah, I did say that. So I bet you it's going to be a little sketchy. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I imagine he's going to try to duck that a little.
Can we, because we haven't really put our tinfoil hats on that much tonight.
Yeah.
I'm kind of fiending to do so. Okay. I'm serious. How they talked about they're not going to release how they got it and that Hitler. How did you say that what Hitler had said? You said something about we don't have to reveal the technology or whatever it is.
They're saying it's protected law enforcement secrets. They don't have to reveal how they developed the DNA profile.
Because that's where my tinfoil hat comes in. And it's is that where, again, I don't know, but we do know that predictive policing and profiling with AI is coming. And I wonder if that's why they won't talk about it is was Kohberger and his DNA or whatever ran through some system where it's kind of he was selected by an algorithm.
Right. It's like the Minority Report movie from way back where, where they just, you are going to commit a crime in the future. We just know it because you've got all the markers for it. So
that's what I'm trying to say because
they
think of how big CODIS is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's huge. The fact that it's not in there. And then you look at the geofence logs, you look at, man, I don't know.
Well, the trick, to be fair, the trick with the CODIS system is the CODIS is just criminal cases that DNA has made it into. So CODIS is purely, a law enforcement tool, and it's either criminals that have been fingerprinted and put into the system, or people related to cases that were put into the system. And so maybe at the end of the day, you can say, well, Kohberger's not in CODIS because Kohberger had no criminal record. So he wouldn't be in CODIS anywhere because he's never had a criminal record. And that was one of the arguments that they had early on when they'd said, well, why didn't you test the other DNA against CODIS? And they were like, well, we were afraid if we put it into CODIS, it would somehow wipe out Kohberger's name. And I'm like, well, that's horseshit because Bryan Kohberger wasn't in CODIS. He had no criminal record. He didn't have any, information in that database. So I don't know. There's a lot of shenanigans.
Well, that's fine. There is a lot of shenanigans. So then I guess the question then becomes, why do you ignore the other two? Is it a confirmation bias because the FBI said it, or
they literally said when Ann Taylor, and this is what I remember, so it's my memory. when Ann Taylor was basically questioning why you didn't develop the other DNA samples from unknown male DNAs, the answer literally, I almost threw a remote at the TV they said, well, we already knew it was Brian Koberger, so there was no need to look any further. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like your answer literally is, because we know it's Koberger, there's no need to look for alternative suspects or test any DNA because we already know it's Koberger. And again, logic would tell you they really would have tested it. And if it had been Koberger, they would have been telling you they got his blood in 5 different locations, and they would have been bragging all day long, every day. So it's a complete lie for them to give you the added, in my opinion. In my opinion, it's a lie for them to tell you, well, we didn't look because we already knew it was Koberger and there was no need to look for any. But if they did test it and it didn't come up him, and that's why they didn't mention it. Because if it had been him, we'd be hearing about it.
Well, and so it is interesting because I've done some research on CODIS like that. It's also a very inexpensive way to get DNA, right? And see, this is where like now I always get a little hesitant on stream when I don't remember something exactly, as far as like when I researched something and I'm going off of memory. But I believe with IgG, you only get 1 shot per DNA sample. And if it was such a minimal sample, they chose to kind of sit on the other 2 and just go with Koberger's, if that makes sense, is how I kind of interpreted it. Like if you entered another male's DNA into the system, it could have maybe knocked Koberger's profile out, and you'd already spent it's very time consuming, as we know.
And the other part that I don't understand, because I'm not a scientist, but talking about how small the DNA sample was on the knife sheath, they literally used a replicating process to take a small sample that's too small and then replicate it over and over again until it gets big enough to be able to do a test on it. And that, just as a layperson, that sounds sketchy as hell. Like, if you don't have enough data, if you don't have enough DNA to make a sample, how do you just replicate it enough times until you do have enough data? Like, again, I'm not a scientist, but just as a layperson, that sounds sketchy as hell, that you're just going to replicate the data over and over again until you have a big enough sample.
That's where I put my tinfoil hat back on. Like, if they are using some sort of like if they're working with like some pre-flagged like federal person of interest, and does male D and male B become irrelevant to the quote unquote mission that the FBI is trying to accomplish, meaning that Koberger was the data point that they needed to justify this like surveillance program. Does his arrest prove that the system works? I don't know. Like, again, we know they're using these predictive policing behavioral analysis stuff.
Here's another side thing to think about. Think about this. I think without people like you and me and the J. Embry Pavarotis and harsh realities out there in the world, without people who have critical thinking skills and question this and put it all over frickin' internet and start getting people digging out there themselves, this probably would have been a slam dunk 20 years ago, right? Because people don't question things. But now YouTubers who they're trying to mock is saying, you guys need to stay out of this wheelhouse. You're not investigators. You're not authorized to do this. But it's us who are breaking these stories, right? And they might have thought, this guy's easy to get. He's awkward. He's socially awkward. Nobody's going to question us. And then in comes assholes like you and me, and we're like, hey, wait a minute, that shit doesn't make sense. And they're like, who is that guy? Shut that guy up. Like, this should be a slam dunk. No, why are we asking questions? Just trust us. It's a slam dunk, And
it's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, like, because I think too, dude, one of the things, and don't get me wrong, I'm very busy. But this is also something that interests me. I've always been a contrarian thinker. I think like you have it or you don't. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think I've told everybody too. Like my half dose of a red pill was like 9/11 being an inside job. My full dosing of a red pill was watching my father battle cancer and hearing just what the doctors are telling him and stuff like that. So really, when you wake up pretty quick. But that's where it's like if you've never had like a red pill moment and you hear some dude named Birdie and Devil's Advocates talking about like, you guys think this was just a murder case. I'm like, no, this could be a field test for IgG, AI, cast tracking, like Federated lab analysis is where there's a multi-agency pipeline between Othram, Moscow PD, the affidavit, a sealed court. The DNA was just a public-friendly cover story for it all. Really, I mean, I can go there, and I don't think people, just because you don't understand something doesn't mean that there's not truth to it. Just like how science, everyone wants to believe science. Well, do you understand science? Can you explain to me how the science works? Or are you just saying, no, some highly paid government official is telling me it's science? So I'm sure he doesn't have any hidden motive or nefarious intent or is biased to keep his cushy paycheck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just, I don't know why else you ditch the other two DNA. It genuinely.
Yeah.
But anyways, so go ahead.
Oh, it's this is my life right now. I'm super stoked about the idea of being able to attend the trial in person. I've never gone to a trial in person, so I'm really hopeful that I can get there. As an aside, I don't think it matters in this case, but I filed official requests to be treated as press down there, although I don't think they're having press seats in this one, but I was informed that you should do it anyway. So this whole process, I'm learning a whole bunch of stuff about the court system. I'm excited about being there, but I'm also terrified because my whole life is about this case right now. And it's just going to be a big emotional dump when it's over. But,
so what would you say, like, are your top, like, 2 or 3 takeaways you're looking to get out of that trip?
Out of the attending the trial?
Yeah.
Well, the main thing is, so I have a super passion for teaching people things about how courts work, how trials work, and whatever. And the biggest reason why I want to be in person is everyone in America, if they stream this, like they keep talking like they might, what you're not going to see on the stream is you're not going to see the jury. You're not going to ever see the jury's faces, and you may never see the exhibits. Like you may never see the crime scene photos of the actual bodies that have been chopped up and mutilated. People in the courtroom, including the public, will see those, including they will see the jury, more than likely. In rare cases, the public, only the jury may see certain crime scene photos. But generally speaking, those inside get to see it, but they won't stream that on the internet. So the biggest thing that I want to do is I want to take my ability. I feel like I've got a group of people that trust that I will tell them the truth and say, look, I put my own eyeballs on this. And I'm telling you, yes, Kaylee was murdered. You know, like, because some people are like, well, maybe she wasn't even murdered. I want to look at her with my own eyes. I want to look at it and make an assessment and say, look, I know you may not trust everyone, but hopefully you trust me. I saw it. And give a firsthand account. So that's what I want to do. I want to be able to give people that inside look. The jury, by the way, looked like they were checked out when the prosecution was talking about this, or they sobbed when this was happening, and give that emotional. I have an eye for those things. That's what I'm excited about, is relating to people what they can't see from watching the live stream. That's what I hope I get into the courtroom for.
Yeah, I think you have a good skill at doing that, and I think too, what I'm serious about this. It's going to make you laugh, but it's like anybody that comes on here and tells us that the cops showed up to their house after they wrote a girl a letter after getting a check from them, or that they texted the Twin Peaks lady and to clarify that he wasn't talking about her ass. I mean, I think that's a pretty trustworthy man. Like, I don't know if you just admit to that, but so no, dude, I'm stoked you're going out there, and I'm very curious to hear your take and opinion on it. Are you going to be going live, or is it going to be mainly?
Yeah. So my intent is, of course, you can't go live from inside the courtroom, of course. But my intent is this: if I get to attend the trial, well, regardless, because even if I have to stay at home some days and can't get into the court on some days, every day at the end of trial, I'm going to do a 30-minute recap of what my 30-minute impressions were for people who only have like 30 minutes to get a kind of a what happened in the courtroom today. And of course, hopefully that'll be eyewitness from inside the court, not just watching it on the stream like everybody else kind of thing. And then I plan on doing lives for the longer audience where I take questions and answers and have people ask me specifically, did you see this? Did you see that? What was Steve Gonzalez doing in there? Did you watch him? Was the family doing this? And ask her longer questions. So, and as a teaser, by the way, Ali Benevento has agreed to come on once a week with me and talk about the case from my perspective. I will share with her in fact, I think she's going to try to watch my 30-minute recaps every day. And then once a week, we're going to talk about what I've reported on and get her perspective as a criminal defense attorney. So I'm excited about the possibilities of that.
Yeah. Didn't you say too, when you were texting me, you have a couple of big, was it guests or lives coming up?
Yeah. Yeah. And I almost felt bad because I know you kind of go live at the same time I do, but keep in
People
mind,
can watch the replay. Yeah.
yeah, we have replays. Absolutely. So if people are interested, Ali Benevento is coming on to do a death penalty special on Wednesday in a couple days where we're going to talk, because she's got a real passion for the death penalty. She's against the death penalty. She thinks it's not a good thing. So we're going to talk about the death penalty, and then we're going to dive into the death penalty as it relates to Luigi Mangione, who's being tried for a capital case, and Brian Koberger. So we're going to talk about it's a death penalty special. So I highly recommend, if you don't get to attend, watch the replay on that. That'll be good. And then also, I don't know if you know Pete Altieri from Murder Metal Mayhem. He and I are doing a live on Thursday evening. We call it Devil's Mayhem because it's a mashup between Devil's Advocate and Murder Metal Mayhem. We're going to do a special on mass murder crime scenes. We're going to cover Manson's mass murder crime scene, several other famous mass murder crime scenes, and kind of relate it to Koberger's thing, and talk about things that you should see in a mass murder crime scene. So that might be kind of cool too. So again, on replay, I don't want to encourage any of your viewers to watch. You got a great show, so stay with Birdie, but come watch the replay on my show if you're interested in those topics.
Yeah, and I think too, like the bigger goal of what I'll kind of have this come full circle. Like you said, 20 years ago, people could have just thought they had a home run case. It's kind of like, we're doing the same thing. I if people want to tune into you, they could, like, I would encourage them. It's like, yeah, YouTube, we have this ability. You could watch it on replay. So while it's live, I enjoy doing it live. And that's really kind of the only reason. It's just I have fun interacting with the chat. So it's not really anything about that anybody should.
I feel bad for the audience sometimes because I'm looking now, we're at an hour and 46 minutes on tonight's live, right? People just don't have enough time to watch Birdie for an hour and 46 minutes and then Lee for another hour and something minutes, and it's like, how do you find the time to do all that? But by the way, I was going to ask you, are you going to come on my After Dark show on Friday?
So this is you don't think people would, maybe if they had a Friday night and nothing to do, they would tune in. I mean, I've tuned into longer streams and long form content, but so Devil's Advocates it's called Devil's Advocates After Dark. So Friday night, he invited me to come onto his show where it's, well, you could share the details of it, but pretty much me and Devil's Advocates are going to be drinking and just shooting the shit. So if you guys, I guess, type a 1 to prove the point of Devil's Advocate, like that would be fun. And
I had people say there's no way I'm going to miss you and Birdie having drinks together, because you guys are already crazy when you talk to each other when you're completely sober. I can't even imagine you guys having a few drinks behind the scenes. So just real briefly about that. Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I go live for about an hour, and then I shut that down on the mainstream, and I have a backstage account on YouTube where I stream a Discord channel. So you can hear the conversation, you can see my face, and you can hear all the voices in Discord. We have a few drinks. I start drinking during the live show, and then when we go backstage, I'm a few drinks in, and we let the hair down. A lot more F-bombs come out. We talk about a lot of really inappropriate stuff. It's just kind of a little fun, a way to let loose, and everybody gets to talk, and it's not just them listening to me. And I hope that you can make it, because I think it would be a blast to have a few drinks with you. So
I'm gonna make it happen, and
that's amazing.
So just, if you want to text me maybe some on-screen directions for people that are wanting to tune in, I'll start putting that at the end of the lives. So if people
sure, I'll do
Discord or whatever it is.
Yes.
And Chantelli Lace was like, we need to have like a drinking game. And then I started thinking, I'm like, I wonder if it's like, do I have something that I don't know that I say all of the time on the stream, where if I say it, the chat could point it out, and then you and I have to take like a shot or something. I don't know.
Oh my God, we'd be under the table if we were forced to take drinks. Oh my God.
It's like, have you ever seen the movie Step Brothers?
Yeah.
When they're sleep talking, I wonder if by the end of the stream we're just gonna be like, the clown has no penis. Like,
To be fair, I don't drink a lot, but to be fair, when I get to the point where I have a couple of tells on myself, if I say certain things, I'm like, oh, it's time for Lee to get off the mic before he says something embarrassing. When I see myself going a certain way, I'm like, I should get off before I say something stupid and tell somebody, hey, you got a great ass. I should give you a tip next time I'm there. Which is not how I said it.
Dude, I'm looking forward to that. And before I go into the tinfoil hat conspiracy, I said it at the beginning of the stream. Tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Central, I have Brian Koberger's friend coming on my stream to interview him. He was the one that was calling a bunch of like guilters fat and short and whatever. I make a joke about that, more so to warn everybody, if you do watch it on your TV and your children are around, I'm going to have a like explicit language warning, I guess, for that one. Cause I did say that one of the things that I think he appreciated was that he can say whatever the hell he wants. Right. I told him, I said, if it gets taken down, it's going to suck. But if you feel compelled to say something, then, get it out there. So
I'm stoked to watch that guy. What time are you going with him? Because I'm going to tune in. Okay. Same, so your same normal time. Okay. I'm going to tune in because I'm stoked to watch that.
Yeah. And if you are in the Discord, which is right down here, you can find the link in my bio. I created a thread for questions that you guys would like to maybe, have come up or get asked. I don't know. To be honest, guys, I talked to him for 45 minutes on the phone. I don't know how it's going to go. I kind of talked him through how I saw it going and told him like, dude, my goal is to set you up for success to get your point across. So, we can maybe just start at the beginning and then work up to where we are at today. So, and Phoenix will be on as well with me, by the way, for that. So I told him actually, and one of the things that made him feel more confident, which I'll credit Phoenix to, was we were talking and he was trying to remember like somebody's name or something in a document that he had seen. And I said, I'm going to have Phoenix on with me. She's really sound in like the court docs and remembering people's names and stuff like that. And I go, her and I will just kind of be in the background. If that ever happens, like, don't bring up a point just because it's slipping your mind. We'll get it out there. So anyways, to finish the stream, I talked about this already when we were going through Detective Payne's January 23rd hearing, or how he kind of reverse engineered that stuff. And that's where I did start to wonder if IGG is the public facing cover story, hence why it's so blatantly on its face, not transparent. And is it because Kohberger is a part of kind of a predictive policing program where with his DNA and other stuff in the algorithm, is that really how they picked him while there's other, two male DNA at the scene? So this is kind of the most applicable one. Usually I pick something way out there to talk about for this, but I mean, I guess devil's advocates, if you want to give your final thought on, just the possibility that maybe this is happening.
I think that it's not outside the realm of possibility that if the government, like the FBI or whatever, has noted somebody like, say, an up-and-coming criminology student or whatever, that they can be working with them on things and getting a real good idea of their profile and their personality and their DNA. And then later on, if they ever need to compromise their person, it's easy to do so because they've already got it. So would it be outside the realm of possibility that the reason why they came to Brian Kohberger's name is they've been working with him, they know who he is, and they're like, this guy would be easy to frame for this. We've got his DNA, we can prove it, we can do this, and this, and nobody will question it. It's not outside the realm of possibility.
It's not. And I think the hardest thing for people to wrap their heads around is like, people will go, well, what? Why? But why? Yeah. Right? Like, and I think, and this is a compliment to people like you and me and people in the Hive, where it's because we're good people, and good people like to assume that others are good people, and they would never expect that there is a nefarious intent behind an action. And when you don't expect it, or if you don't at least look at the possibility of it, that's when the cloak gets pulled over your eyes and a fast one's pulled on you. And now, God only knows what could come out of it, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
You could see it even on the most basic level, like if you're too trusting in a relationship, or if you go above and beyond at work on a group project and you don't get credit. Like, there's even on the littlest things, you never know what someone's intent is. And a lot of times it's because people are good people and they assume others are thinking how they would. But that's not always the case, especially with our government.
By the way, somebody, just real quick, somebody asked me if I would do a lunchtime break during the trial if I'm there. And yes, I will. The quick breaks for potty breaks, if they break those, I'll probably going to have to use the restroom myself, maybe. Who knows? But I think they typically take at least an hour lunch break during the trial. And so, yeah, I didn't even think about that. But if I'm in court, I will do an update in between lunch too.
Yes. And then also too, I will post tomorrow at some point about Will coming on the stream. If you guys could please, when you see that, interact with it, like, comment it, or send it to two of your buddies. Like I said, I feel super honored that he's willing to come on the stream. I know his video got taken down, or he took it down, or who knows, but I'm glad that he changed his mind. So, and I'm glad that it's on this stream. So,
yes.
Anyways, any last closing thoughts, Devil's Advocates? If not, as a reminder to everybody in my hive, you guys can find Devil's Advocates on YouTube and on TikTok. It's Devil's Advocates 2024 is the username. And Devil's Advocates 1 on TikTok?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, _1 Devil's Advocate _1 on TikTok.
Yeah. So go check that stuff out. I know we've recently been covering a shitload about the Idaho 4. He's been touching on the Luigi case and also the Karen Reed case, or was it?
No, the Gilgo Beach.
The Gilgo Beach case. That's right.
Yeah, those are the three. Yep.
But yeah, I always love having you on Monday nights. And then, like I said,
I love being here.
Yeah, and tomorrow's Will. Wednesday will probably just be myself in Phoenix. Thursday, Sammy T. Friday, I'll host my normal stream, and then make sure you guys are tuning into Devil's Advocates After Dark to see him and I. Well, God knows what's going to come out of that, but
and everybody here, cross your fingers that I do have a nice little lead on that thing down in Boise, Idaho. Because if I get that, I'll bring that onto your show too, Bertie, and share it with your group. So,
what if you got the waitress to come onto the stream?
Yeah, I would love to. Like I said, her or her mother. She seemed to keep saying her mother knows more, so maybe it'll be her mother. But either way, I'm willing to put one of them on camera if they want to go on camera. And maybe we'll do it on your show. Maybe we'll do it on my show. Maybe we'll do it at we'll figure it out. But one way or another, I do want to share it with your group as well, because I think that you guys follow the Kohberger case so much, you'll enjoy that look. So
yeah, no, please do. And with that being said, Hive, thank you all. For everybody that tuned in, Devil's Advocates, I will see you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central. Cheers, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Yep, cheers.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life.